point one is the fact that I love my daughter and the way in which that relates to what I do and don't say on YouTube, the way in which that relates to what I am and am not doing here in China right now. I get mostly mean-spirited questions about this, but once in a while it's someone with good intentions who just does not know how to express themselves in an inoffensive way. Learning the Chinese language for me has always been very strongly linked to my daughter, and I have talked about that both on my blog and on YouTube and in podcasts. What you guys may not realize is that my daughter is growing up with Chinese as her second language. And the primary reason, indeed the only reason, why I started learning Chinese when I was in Taiwan was because of my daughter. Now, my daughter is not ethnically Chinese. However, you may have met, I don't know, bourgeois white people who very casually say they're going to try to teach their kids Chinese growing up, who are not serious about it. My ex-wife and I were very, very serious about it. So serious that we moved to Taiwan. And we moved to Taiwan with a very small baby being carried in our arms. That was a memorable flight. We flew from France to Taiwan. We rented a house in Taiwan. And we got set up very seriously in Taiwan for my daughter to have an early childhood education with Chinese as her second language. Now, since we split up, I do not know how serious my ex-wife has been about that, but I assume she has remained pretty serious about raising my daughter with Chinese as her second language, or possibly as her third language at this point. I don't know. That would be very much in character with my ex-wife, and she's never told me that she changed that plan. So I think that's very likely to continue. My ex-wife is not completely fluent in Chinese, but Chinese was central to her area of study, whereas it has never been central to my own area of study, and it still isn't. But I'm in China right now learning Chinese. So the idea that my being in China is somehow unrelated to my daughter is false. Short-term and long-term, it's very strongly linked to my daughter. It is quite possible that my ex-wife and daughter would visit me here in Kunming. I got one very brief email from my ex-wife saying that she would. It's like 2-sentence email or something. Say, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to come and visit you in Kunming with my daughter. And then I never heard anything more about that. I doubt that was a lie. I think when she wrote that email, she meant it, but I really don't know if the plans evaporated, or maybe her lawyer told her not to, or I don't know. Just never heard anything more about that. And look, I mean, a lot of you guys also, all of the opinions about my legal situations are just surreal on the internet. I think all you people have grown up watching TV and movies, and you think you know a lot more about how the law works than you do. I do love my daughter. I do miss my daughter. I do think about my daughter almost every day. I think if anyone says they think about their kid every single day, they're lying, because some days you are just so busy that it doesn't enter into your mind. I mean, I think if you had a job like you're a firefighter or something, the days when you're actually in a burning building, those days you don't think about your kid. But the reality of my life these last couple of years has been that I absolutely did have enough free time, and I still do have enough free time to think a lot about my daughter. So as I'm sitting here, you know, studying Chinese, writing out pages and pages of Chinese script, yeah, I have the time to think my daughter, and I do both while I'm awake and while I'm asleep. I do frequently have dreams about my daughter. I have lucid dreams only as an adult. It would be a whole other video for me to talk about dreams and the role that dreams play in my life. Recently, actually, I was talking about that with Vegan Gains, of all people. He's much more of a dreamer than I am as a character. I talked about the role of dreams and hallucinations in my life because I'm anti-drug. I'm against the use of, LSD or other hallucinatory drugs. But I do recognize in both the history of philosophy, history of civilization, and in many people's personal lives, that both hallucinations and dreams often play an important role. For me personally, it's of autobiographical significance that on the day I recorded the video in which I break down weeping twice, a video that now has over 100,000 views, video in which I briefly suggest that, I hope this court case with Durian Ryder, I hope this conflict with Durian Ryder, his denunciation, doesn't impact my divorce negatively and so on. I recorded that immediately after waking up from a short nap due to jet lag and what have you. I was sleeping at strange times. I had a short nap during which I did dream about my daughter again. And I woke up straight out of that nap and hit record to record that monologue, really with the kind of emotional impact of seeing my daughter in my dream very much still fresh in my mind. And I mean, you guys don't know me well enough. Nobody knows me well enough to tell. But at the start of that video, I'm still a little bit asleep. When I watch it, I can see that. I can see it in my eyes. I can see it in my face that I haven't fully woken up yet. And then a few minutes into the video, I'm a bit more alert. But I do that sort of thing intentionally. That reflects my background in the theater and what have you, where, I do not want to present a cold and irrational exterior on this channel. I very intentionally want to be emotionally porous on camera. I want to not just talk about my feelings, but really show my feelings. And in that case, I succeeded in really showing my feelings about my daughter. And of course, the other thing that made that recording so ludicrously emotionally intense, I woke up, I was in this kind of very raw state, coming straight out of a dream about my daughter. But during that recording, for half a second, the electricity cuts out. And you see that in the video, and I freak out, and then I respond to it. That was also very real, because emotionally, you're pouring your heart out on camera. And if the electricity cuts out, I wasn't sure I could do it again. I was like, if the electricity cuts out and I've lost this, how can I ever record this again? How can it ever be this real or this immediate or this emotional? With all that being said, I do think it would be lame if I came here on the channel every couple of days or every week or something and talked about how much I miss my daughter. I do it periodically. There are updates about my divorce. But the other side of this is, guys like Vegan Cheetah periodically has to come on and talk about his criminal record, talk about, talk about his personal life in a way that recapitulates things he said on his channel 6 months ago. Because there are people, he has new fans who have never gone back and watched the videos from 6 months ago. So no, my daughter is still very much a part of my life in terms of why I'm doing what I am doing and why I'm not doing other things. Legally, again, both legally and morally, really what I'm about to say has more to do with ethics than the law. I would never show up at my ex-wife's house or apartment uninvited. I would just absolutely never do that under any circumstances. So from my perspective, my ability to see my daughter rests entirely on my wife's cooperation. So legally, she's still my wife because the divorce is still not finished. I can refer to her as my ex-wife, whatever, because we filed for divorce, but the paperwork and the actual trial and so on, the court proceedings are still unfinished, whatever you want to say. So, there's this long drama already discussed on this channel where I did go to visit my ex-wife and daughters. The last time I did that, she basically stabbed me in the back. And again, for me, ethically, so this is massively simplifying, but she invited me to come see my daughter, and then in what I interpret as an attempt to blackmail me, she pulled the rug out from under that. She in effect canceled the offer once I had already spent all the money and committed to fly over to Germany. I'd bought the airplane tickets and paid for the room and everything else. So very sad situation, but I would never, I would never show up uninvited. To me, again, even if there's no legal question involved, it's something I would never do. So, in order for her to prevent me from seeing my daughter, all she has to do is not respond to an email. And she's done that many times, where, kind of vaguely says, okay, you can come visit your daughter, and then, for whatever reason, the negotiations just go silent. It's not even negotiations, just arrangements, like, okay, when should I come, what have you. And, legally, she's played various games with that. Again, I don't want to tell the whole story here, but she basically had me declared MIA. Legally, she had me declared equivalent to dead in France, pretending that she had no contact with me at a time when the email record alone shows she was getting email from me and replying to email from me. So she knew I was alive. She knew where I was. I have emails where I described to her at length where I'm living, and details, because she was considering moving over and joining me in Victoria, Canada. So I talk about where the grocery store is, human details like that. So legally, she's now in a terrible position because, in my opinion, she has lied to the court. I'm saying those things for legal reasons. My understanding of the situation is that she lied to the court, and she misled the court and claimed that I was, again, legally dead, legally MIA, that I disappeared without a trace, when we can prove in court very simply that that's not true at all. And on the contrary, during that period of time, I was sending gifts to my daughter, and I was trying to arrange to visit my daughter. I was trying to be an active part of my daughter's life. But her reasons for preventing me from seeing my daughter, as I say, may well have been linked to that strategy on her part, that she wanted to have me declared missing or dead. Now, the only update I have on that, I got one very short email that was from my wife's lawyer, sent to my lawyer, sent to me. So I do not know if this is based on something my ex-wife said, or if it's purely the lawyers talking. You don't know. There's, we say in English, broken telephone. This is an indirect message. But that last message I got can be summarized in one sentence. I got a message from my ex-wife's lawyer saying, "How much money do you want?" Now that's surreal to me in many ways, because our situation, our problem, it couldn't possibly be resolved by money. I mean, how are you going to buy me in this situation? And then beyond that, my ex-wife is not a millionaire. If my ex-wife were actually Bill Gates, maybe there'd be some conversation to be had. But the nature of this whole situation, I don't want to bankrupt my ex-wife. I don't want to, make my ex-wife and daughter more poor. And how can money possibly solve any of these problems? Even if it were millions of dollars, how could it? But of course, in this case, So to me, that was bizarre. And the only spin I can put on that is that I think that my ex-wife lawyer, her lawyer must just be sitting there with her, her head in her hands, saying, "What am I going to do? This is a disaster, legally and morally. My ex-wife has put herself in such a bad position. They must be very worried about what happens when it goes to court. So they're asking if they can buy me." But, you can't buy me. And, what do I have to sell? It's just surreal. After what you've done to me, how can money settle anything? It's just ridiculous. And on the other hand, if you were just a reasonable human being and cooperated positively in terms of co-parenting, then there'd be no reason for any legal dispute whatsoever. So anyway, such is life. But yeah, I mean, again, it's sometimes hate mail. Sometimes it's people who have good intentions but are idiots who are asking, well, why aren't you seeing your daughter right now? I don't know what you imagine. I mean, if something you've seen in a movie, you think I can solve this situation by showing up uninvited at my ex-wife's house or apartment. To me, even if there was no legal question, even if there were no lawyers involved, that would be immoral. Simply, if my ex-wife doesn't want to see me, doesn't want to talk, I would never show up. And again, there are also other halfway measures, my ex-wife cannot want to see me, but she can drop off my daughter, at a point where I pick up you can arrange to see very little of each other and still spend quality time with your kid. But no, I mean, there's absolutely no way to force that situation morally or ethically. To me, any kind of initiative of that sort is immoral. And on the other hand, court cases are slow. That's it. I have no timeline. I have no estimate from my lawyer about when that divorce will be resolved. And on the contrary, the only legal experts who spoke to me about it, they always just say, "Oh well." They always just say, "Oh well, you should just settle out of court," as if nothing's wrong. It's God, years have gone by at this point. There is zero possibility of this being settled without a judge's intervention. And it seems to me actually two separate court dates with two separate judges will be required. So yes, I love my daughter. She's a huge part of why I'm doing everything I'm doing in my life right now. Why I'm enrolled in the university program. Why I signed up to join the army a couple months ago. Why I'm in China right now learning Chinese. Why I ever studied Chinese in the first place. Because it is not my personal interest in any way whatsoever. And it's not even in my professional interest. It's not. That has everything to do with my daughter and my ex-wife and my daughter's presumed future. Yeah. And my presumed future is being a part of my daughter's life. And yeah, a couple of you people who've met me face to face who know me, you've been complete assholes about this. And I'll never forget. I'll be straight with you. You know? I'm not going to name who you are, but sure, you know, some of you guys could have shown a little bit of sensitivity, a little bit of human decency. You could have expressed questions as questions instead of as accusations, and you didn't. You made asses out of yourselves, and the relationship between us will never be the same.